Good afternoon. This is my presentation on the marshes within Glenn County, my place for the place paper. Where exactly are we talking about here? So, broad, on a broad scale, this is all the coastline that stretches from, the northern tip of Florida all the way up to where South Carolina meets, the barrier islands. In this presentation, we're going to focus a little bit more on the marshes that are lying within Glenn County, but a lot of this is applicable to all of that area. Why is this significant to me? Well, I grew up in Southwest Florida, and a lot of the area that I grew up in is very similar in nature to the area we're talking about, which is the marshes in the Glenn County area. Um, as part of this assignment, I went out to a few different spots and really tried to soak in as much as I could, meditate as per requested, and the smells, the heat, the sun on my face, the wind blowing, it all really reminded me of when I grew up and explored and fished and hunted throughout the swamplands. So it really just brought me back to where I grew up. This area is easily defined by the shallow marshland, the tide pools. There's three river systems there's three rivers that all meet the ocean in various places that create this environment, causing in some places a brackish with one side leaning fresh, sometimes leaning salt, but generally it's all brackish, and the plant life and the animal life have adapted to be able to live in this type of environment. Some of the plant life you would see here, obviously if you live in the area, you've seen the live oaks. It's kind of a big point of contention around here about how to preserve them. Palmetto trees. The most prevalent thing in the area, though, in these marshes specifically, though, are the different salt grasses and cord grasses. Pretty much as far as the eye can see, this is the majority of what you're looking at, with sporadic trees with moss hanging from them throughout it. Like I said before, this is a tidal pool type area that the water levels shift with the tides. So on high tide days, you're going to see larger fish varieties. On low tide days, you're going to see the spawning grounds for a lot of these different animals. Alligators are obviously a huge part of the area. Boat-tailed grackles are some of the bird life. Horseshoe crabs. I don't know how much anyone goes into the marshlands. Me particularly, I don't get too deep in there, but I have definitely seen them. Loggerhead turtle spawning grounds. Rattlesnakes, which I did not know was a thing here, but now I do. I'm glad. In the less populated areas, you'll tend to see white-tailed deer throughout the marshland, but I think that's around this area it's generally more inland, less so on the coast. But if people weren't here, you might see more. Like I said, the terrain is very consistent through the northern Florida to the South Carolina border, and it continues past that. But as we're talking about this specifically, it's the Georgian marshes, primarily salt marshes because of the Atlantic Ocean, obviously. But it does have freshwater mixing from the Altamont, Little Satilla, and Turtle rivers. This causes estuary openings scattered across this entire marshland with varying levels of salinity, depending on the tidal shifts. And then, tidal pools. It's just a perfect breeding ground for very diverse animal species. So human relationship. The original inhabitants were the Mukama tribe, and until they existed here until the Spanish started to settle with missions in the late 16th century. A majority of the population of that tribe was wiped out via slavery or diseases brought by the Spanish settlers. These people really did sustain themselves on a group on a land and sea basis. You know, they did some amount of agriculture, while not as widespread as some of their peers across the other parts of America. They did utilize this, like the ocean and the freshwater systems, to create a healthy society within this area. In more recent history, though, the introduction of industries like paper manufacturing and tourism have caused an immense amount of damage via pollution, with noise, air, water, soil. I mean, I'm not going to get super in depth on that, but it has caused a major shift in the natural order of the area, as far as even changing like waterways to accommodate these factories. So basically, to summarize everything, this area is very, very important ecologically to the entire coastline, but specifically to ours because of the barrier islands. The barrier islands shield us from a lot of natural disasters, not necessarily just hurricanes, but flooding of a lot of types. It provides a lot of sustainability for the people that live here if they work in the tourism industry, commercial fishing. It is very important for us to try to revert some of the changes we've had thus far and potentially progress us into a better state of being in the area. And these are my references. I basically pulled a lot of information from the Glenn County Public Works. There's some naturalist naturalist papers written on the area of the plant life and the animal life. That's really where I pulled a lot of this information from. Hope you have a good afternoon.